Welcome to the Dressage Today podcast's Training Buzz. These short podcasts bring you the best tips straight from our subscription video site, Dressage Today On Demand. To get full access to all our videos, go to ondemand.dressagetoday.com and enter promo code DTPodcast to save 15% off your subscription. Now, listen in on this week's buzz and enjoy the ride. Our sponsor is Seen Through Horses. Seen Through Horses, presented by Zoetis, is a peer-to-peer campaign convening individuals, 50 nonprofits, mental health professionals, celebrities, and influencers to help increase awareness, public engagement, and funds to improve access to programs incorporating horses into mental health and personal growth. This collaborative campaign coincides with Mental Illness Awareness Week and World Mental Health Day, running October 3rd to October 10th. For more information, visit horsesformentalhealth.org/campaign. In this episode, we hear from USDF bronze, silver, and gold medalist, dressage trainer, and bitting expert, Stephanie Brown-Beamer. She discusses bit mouth pieces, joints, rings, and shanks, as well as what to consider when picking and fitting a bit for your horse.
So typically, horses will do one of three things when they're uncomfortable in their mouth. They'll come above the bit to evade the discomfort, which we're familiar with. They'll come behind the bit to evade the discomfort, or they'll push into the contact and get heavy. Horses will push into pain, so they're pushing into the discomfort to stabilize the bit, to give themselves some relief. And as a trainer, that was a little bit of a hard one for me to get my hands around. I really was always taught that, if a horse is heavy, it's inactivity behind. And it may still go hand in hand, but the one thing I've seen over the course of doing this is that typically when we find a well-fit bit that the horse is comfortable in, that they come off the forehand and will accept the contact, and then they will be more willing to carry more weight behind, which then increases the activity, and we'll have a better balanced horse. So I'd like to talk about when we use loose ring versus fixed cheek bit. Loose ring tends to be for horses that tend to be a little strong or heavy in the hand, and a loose ring is going to give a little less stability for them to lean on. Fixed cheek bit tends to be for a horse that can be too light in the contact, may come behind the vertical a little bit, so it gives them something solid to push into. So one thing that we want to take into consideration is there are a lot of developments in bits nowadays, and a lot of companies are coming out with some really great mouthpieces for different conformation and sensitivities. And the thing that we do want to consider is that often nowadays a single joint is not your best option. There's so many other things that can have the horse be more comfortable that and still gain stability, lateral stability from the bit. And when we talk about the single joint versus the double jointed bits, one thing that you can do is just put your hand out and put the bit on and pick up on the reins and just see where the pressure is. And that's the pressure on your horse's tongue. So that's a double joint versus a single joint. And the majority of the pressure on this bit is on the edges of the tongue, i.e. then the bars and into the palate. That is one thing that a single joint will do, is it will go into the palate. So we want to take that into consideration. When we look at our double jointed bits, I still see a lot of super, super thick bits, and our more modern warm bloods just don't have that kind of room in their mouth. They have big, thick tongues, low palates, fleshy cheeks, and short smiles, and a 20 millimeter bit on a young horse just isn't going to be comfortable. But the thing that we want to consider with a lot of the older double jointed loose and single jointed loose rings is that the rings that attach, whether it be the single joint or the loose ring are very big and very thick, and that can go into the palate, it can dig into the tongue. Sometimes you see the lozenge on a loose double jointed bit. The lozenge will be much wider and will extend beyond that less sensitive part of the tongue, and actually be as wide as the bars. So something to consider. The wider, I've seen wide bits, thick bits rather, that when they're too thick, I'm talking a thicker bit than this, what can happen is the tongue will cover the bars to a certain degree. And what will happen is when the bit is super thick, the widest part of the bit is out by the ring. And what will happen is it'll push the tongue away from the bars and sit on the bars, which is quite uncomfortable to the horse. So just a few things to consider when you're picking out your loose ring or your fixed cheek, double or single jointed bit. When you're fitting your loose ring, you want about a 1/4 inch on each side, not a ton of room, but about a 1/4 inch, just to give enough room for the lips. But if it gets too wide, what happens is you'll get rubs. Same thing will happen if the bit's too small. You can get rubs on the outside of the mouth, above the lips. And, you know, if the bit's too big, then, you know, what's going to happen is your lozenge isn't going to sit in the middle. You're going to have more pressure on the bars. So you're going to experience more discomfort in the horse. With your fixed cheek bit, you're going to go down a 1/4 inch from what the horse typically measures. You want that bit to be a little bit more flush with the lips. There's not as much play in it, so it'll be more stable in the mouth. We'll often do fixed cheek bits for our young horses. What that does is it helps give lateral stability so that we can actually steer them. So, and it gives them something solid to push into to set them up for the most amount of success. The long story is, in a few words, is really make sure that you find the right mouthpiece for your horse's conformation of their mouth and their sensitivities. Every horse is different. Every horse's sensitivities are different. They're built differently. And we have such a wide variety of mouthpieces now on the market that it's really important to explore and discover which one's best for your horse.
We hope you enjoyed this bonus podcast. What would you like to learn about, and what tips would you like to hear? Email me, Stephanie, at sruff@equinenetwork.com, or reach out to us on social media. Remember, go to ondemand.dressagetoday.com and enter promo code DTPodcast to save 15% off your subscription to our online catalog. Thanks for listening.